So as mentioned, the title of our talk today is How to Build a Startup. And, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but we thought it would be interesting and hopefully beneficial to the people at this event to talk about at least how we've approached it, given our experiences, background. Hence the title, Digitally Transforming a 10-Year-Old BPO into a SaaS. See, I hope my screen updated. Yes, great. So as you can see here, we're going to have at least two speakers, Kaveen and myself. I'll be starting. And when we were talking about the design for this talk, we intentionally took a very software engineering approach, single responsibility. I would talk at the beginning from the business perspective, business problem, what we wanted to get done at the end of the day, and hand that off to Kaveen for him to talk about the engineering side of this. So just to start it off, a little bit about me. My name is Sohan. I am not probably the least experienced engineer developer in this audience. My background is actually in mathematics and have just picked up the software skills to write stuff that just barely works throughout my experience. I would consider myself a startup junkie. Since coming back to Sri Lanka in 2011, I have spent probably 95% of my time trying to build startups. I was actually at John Keel's before joining Gradient, so it's how you know you're an addict. When you try to break out and you come back. Anyways, and I guess the last important thing to maybe mention is that I'm really focused on, at least I think I'm focused on solving what I consider impactful problems. I'm very glad that Google doesn't screen these slides before we present, so I can drop my highly opinionated statements. But given the audience, we have an audience of tech and technology enthusiasts. So I wanted to take this opportunity, to talk about, I think, some of the big problems that we've all been hearing about in the news, specifically the future prospects of Sri Lanka not looking that good. And again, my personal opinion, I think that tech needs to be the one to lead the way out of this. First foot forward should come from the tech people. And, the reason being, I think the playing field is most level in our space. And I really don't understand why if we work smart, put our heads together, why we can't build, $100 million businesses. It's I think very much within reach. And hopefully this presentation will convince you, at least, that there is hope. So the pictures here are meant to kind of show that, the weight is on us, on us. And the right-hand side is that I think this is only going to be possible if we remain laser focused on creating incredible value. And what do I mean by incredible value? Not, incremental improvement. I'm talking, 10x, revolutionary kind of things. So that said, before jumping into the content of the presentation, I just wanted to share probably my favorite quote of all time. And I think this is especially relevant because I hope that some of the people listening to this are not pure developers. General enthusiasts, I think, are very, very critical to solving this problem. But I'd just like to read this out loud. Very suitably, this quote is from Eric Schmidt, former chairman and CEO of Google. I know everyone can read, but I think it's just nice to hear it. I have seen the same cycle again and again. Great products are created through small teams with great leaders who eliminate all non-critical features while working under extreme pressure and produce a product that just barely works. So this is the point I was trying to make. If we really get laser focused on building stuff that can really make a difference, we can achieve these kinds of breakthroughs. So as I said, I'm going to start the first part of the talk before handing off to Kaveen. And by first part of the talk, I mean just setting the stage, what the business problem is, what we saw as the vision, and how we kind of saw ourselves getting there. So yes, let me run you through this now. So the company that we're talking about here is a company called PlanLogic. They have been around for quite a while. Started in 2011, and what they did was essentially provide financial advice to residents of Australia. What you're looking at now, the right-hand side, you see an actual kind of request capturing document. And what happens is advisors in Australia meet with clients to understand their situations, goals, expectations. They take all of that, put it into a Word document, and send that across to this company, PlanLogic. And PlanLogic essentially details and fleshes out that recommendation. Financial recommendation. What is this financial recommendation, you ask? Well, you're looking at it. It's very, very often a 60-page plus Word document filled with, stats, figures, details. That goes back to the advisor. They present that to the client, and they literally present that, and bear in mind, this is the person who's paying for this advice could be, 60 plus years old, and they're staring at this 60 plus page Word document, and it can probably be better. Let's just say that. And there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, here are the numbers for what this company did in 2011. Started out with a team of 4. And at the end of that year, they actually turned around 146 of these documents to 9 financial advisors in Australia. And they generated $40,000 in revenue. Not bad at all. Fast forward 10 years. Team has grown by an order of magnitude, 4 to 63. The number of documents has also increased an order of magnitude. Revenue has increased about 2 orders of magnitude, and so far so good on paper, on the surface. And this is where I think the CEO of PlanLogic reached out to me, because he saw that there was not just an opportunity. If they really wanted to change gears and create new markets, they needed to inject technology into the business. So credit to him for pushing the button on this and bringing me in. I won't go into too much detail here, but I just wanted to show you that what actually goes on behind the scenes involves a lot of different stakeholders. What's moving between these stakeholders is non-digital, in the sense it's emails, Word documents being exchanged, and it's just a very painful manual process. This actually takes about 5 to 7 working days to turn this around. Email comes in to Word document going out, and understandably, this is kind of screaming to be disrupted. I don't think the problems faced by this business are surprising to any of us. The 3 main things that I just want to touch on are, this is an extremely manual process. Again, very slow, error prone, not to mention compliance heavy because of the nature of the business. Visibility is something that is a pain point to both sides. When I say both sides, I mean the people in Australia, clients and advisors, as well as the team in Sri Lanka here. And again, because a lot of these communications are emails, Word documents, it's not easy to make statements about where things are going. And even if you wanted to kind of improve the situation, it's very difficult to, because there's really genuinely no data here that can be used. Again, email and Word documents. And the next natural question to ask is, well, why hasn't anyone done anything about this? It's been 10 years. This business has kind of, grown very linearly. Why hasn't anyone come and shaken things up? And just want to touch on my reasons for why this hasn't happened. The first one, I think, is the most interesting, and I think it's one of the mistakes that a lot of startups make, which is building a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. So in this case, it was slightly different. I think 9 out of 10 people will say, hey, there's no problem here. From the advisor's perspective, it's relatively easy. They send an email, they reply a few emails, they get this Word document back. Acceptable, no burning need for a problem. And this, I think, is one of our one of the unique perspectives that we brought to the table on this. We said, hey, there is a much better way to do this. People don't realize it, but by changing the rules of the game, you can engineer an experience which is 10x better. The second reason I think why it's challenging to do genuine innovation here is that the markets and data are genuinely a little difficult, in the sense the industry is regulated. The data that you need to use to achieve this kind of efficiency is very often fragmented, siloed, and incomplete. And finally, there's again another reason, I would say big stumbling block to disrupting this industry is that there are some serious constraints limiting to how you can attack this. What do I mean by constraints? To do anything in this space, you need a very in-depth knowledge of the business, and that often sits within the business. It's not easy to communicate that to external people, and even if you do get the people to help you, it's essentially a requirement gathering exercise, which is challenging because you don't have a common language in which to discuss and refine the problem. Excuse me. So for these reasons, I kind of convinced myself that this is not an easy problem to attack. Which leads, I think, us to the next point. Given this is a very difficult problem to attack, why did we think we could make a difference here? So just a very high-level explanation of why we were confident we can do something. And again, I'm just trying to focus on some of the things that we tried to differentiate before jumping into this problem. We actually had two co-founders who could attack the problem from inside and out, not just from one side. Secondly, not that it's less important, but we actually had an incredible team that we could pull together to do this. Talented, motivated, and the trust was there that we can say, hey, listen, you know what you're doing, go out and get it done. It provided us incredible agility. Another thing that I think was unique to our situation was the fact that we had subject matter experts that we could tap. I mentioned that very often you don't have the language to communicate, you don't have the knowledge that's required to actually implement. In this case, we had it. The business had 10 plus years of experience on average per person. So that's the knowledge part solved. One of our engineers, Surija, I hope she's listening to this. Hello. She's been in this space for 5 years herself. So she has, really well calibrated herself to speak and understand this domain language that we needed to understand to implement things on our end. And finally, this thing about perspective, everyone says it, but I really think that unless you really genuinely have a different take on the problem, it's not easy to crack some of these tough ones. And like I said, I am not a software person. I'm more of a math and first principles kind of guy. So I think that also was a factor in doing this. Everyone on the team I know is very good at what they do, and of course, all of us putting our heads together is what got this done. So hopefully, what you'll see throughout this presentation is that compared to the other players in this space, we didn't look at this as an integration problem or a UX problem as some of our competitors have done. We saw this as a data quality problem, and data architecture was a key element in cracking this. So 2 slides left from me before I hand off to Kaveen. So great. Hopefully I've convinced you that this is an important problem to solve. It's a difficult problem, and in spite of all those things, there is a chance that we can actually make a dent here. But that's not enough. There has to be a bigger picture to this whole situation. So let me just try to zoom out for a little bit. What you're looking at now is essentially the 30,000-foot view of how we see our trajectory in this journey. The first step is really digitizing. This is the root cause. We don't have data in which to do anything in terms of disruption. So the first step is really digitizing, and we were able to achieve that by designing a web app for the submission as opposed to sending emails across. Sounds obvious, but it's actually quite a challenging design problem. It took us about 6 months to design a form that can capture arbitrary financial recommendations and client situations. And once we got past that roadblock, a lot of things became much easier. We can talk about validation. We can think about how do we need to architect this data. So the digitization piece was really critical, the most critical in this foundation that we're building. And I think everything else is logical afterwards. Once we've digitized, we can think of automation. How do we consume this submission data plus any external data sources to go ahead and automate how that 60-page Word document is produced, okay, in a nutshell. And we haven't got there yet. We're actually very close to doing this. We're launching a beta next month. And at least preliminary results are quite promising. We've seen a 2x increase in efficiency. We're aiming for the 10x, but I think it's good that we're at the 2x now. And finally, okay, we have the capability to automate now that we've digitized. The next thing to think about, and this is what I was talking about, creating new markets. These recommendations that are going out, it's a financial recommendation. I mean, if it was me, the question I would ask is this any good? And it's very difficult to make quantitative statements about how good or bad a financial recommendation is. And this is where technology comes in. Specifically optimization, and this is actually what I'm very passionate about. But once we have this machinery, I think it's an exercise in high performance computing to actually make statements about, hey, your recommendation is the best in terms of XYZ, or given these constraints, these are the feasible solutions, and I can enumerate, rank those, and actually make statements. And I think that's very important for this industry, which is lacking at the moment. I think it's not that much more of a step to think about building out APIs on top of these capabilities. Think of optimization as a service. There's no reason why, if we have this capability, why it should be restricted to Australian markets. Given my financial situation, given my goals, what are the top 10 ways to get there ranked? I think that's a very, very, very powerful piece of tech to have. So last slide from me. This is what I've told the team we need to be aiming for. Our next staff photo. There are a couple new additions here to represent the tech players. But I think the important thing to kind of note here is that with relatively minor increase in team size, we can break out of this kind of linear mode and get into exponential. We've increased the number of docs that we're turning around, and revenue that we're generating by 2 orders of magnitude. And that's a pretty cool thing to do. I mean, I touched on building $100 million businesses. This is it. And we have so many BPOs in this country. Getting a bit philosophical here, but I think people think of this as a low value add, but there's value in the data. There's value in the data. And it's just figuring out the right way to use it. Yeah? So I hope I've done a decent job of motivating why this is an important problem to solve and what business needs from the engineering team to achieve that. So I will hand this over to Kaveen for him to wrap up the rest of this. Kaveen, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sohan. Let me share my screen. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yep, can see. All good.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Sohan. I'm Kaveen, and first of all, welcome again, everyone. Iboan. So everything you see on the screen is true. Yes, I'm a computer hobbyist, technology advocate, and I do make a bit of snarky comments at times, but it's straight through. So yeah, about me. I'm the engineering lead of Gradient, and previously I used to work for WSO2's Financial Solutions in their open banking product. And yeah, so in general, I really love building fintech stuff. And one of the things that kind of got me into this is coming from open banking in the European Union, which is like full of data, and coming here. It has been a really strange, like, kind of juxtaposition. So yeah, make it so. Gather the team and understand the constraints. So let's get started. I joined Gradient like 2 years ago. And when I joined, there was a couple of mock UIs and a lot of effort actually being given into product design. So the product itself wasn't existing. And so we need to kind of rapidly develop it and see how to make it out. And we had to do a couple of things. One is first gather the team of people to get this done. Partially it was there when I was joining as well. And then understanding the constraints, because that kind of allows you to make the best decisions, really, which is based on situation. So this may not be a sure path thing that everyone can apply, but you can use the same kind of optics to kind of gauge and see how you should tackle these kind of problems. So yeah, building a team, what is that all about? It's hard in the start, I guess, because obviously, as Sohan said, it's a new idea. The belief might not be shared by everyone, and you need the kind of knowledge and sensibility to kind of attack it properly. And yeah, in our case, it's in our case, and I guess in most cases where like two forces come together, you have to bridge the gap, right? Because not everyone, as Sohan said, like speaks the same language. So we have to first I have to say, PlanLogic is not a software company. So we have to guide them to build a really good SaaS. And in this diagram, what is actually more important is product design, which is out of my area, but product design and software design architecture. So those two are pretty much paramount. It's like a 80-20 split that you have to be very careful of. So you should give more focus on that. And that means design in-house and try to do the architecture in-house as well. And so yeah, let's meet the team. And our team is like core design and architecture is done in-house. And then we have a lot of folks who are very specialized in different technologies helping us in a elastic development team fashion. We call it that because there is when starting out, you may not have like a lot of work. It might be a lot of design and going back to the drawing table, figuring out what went wrong, and you have to come back. So using this kind of method of outsourcing and getting folks who are very specialized and available to get some of the hard things done is really beneficial. So it's like the 80-20 rule of vital few, because ultimately in retrospective, the 20% kind of brings the whole thing together, really, right? And some might say like there are some disadvantages of outsourcing with time zones, and you have to need strong contracts, and I just find it as like really advantageous, because multiple time zones is like you get another development team working in another time zone while you're sleeping. And also strong contracts is a good thing in the sense of when you're designing software, you're putting requirements down. It's always good to be really candid and get the idea across in a very linear fashion, right? So That's all good. And what you get to do in-house with that freedom is actually make your own prototypes, experiment with business, and kind of find new things. So that's a win-win-win, really. And so, yeah, let's sort it. I know this is not a marketing strategy thing, but I'll explain why I'm choosing to do this. Apart from like explaining to you all the kind of situation we are in, I think it's a really great thing to know the strengths and the weaknesses of your team to achieve your goals, right? It can be strengths and weaknesses can be both leveraged. And in general, it's good to be mindful and to level the field between all of the stakeholders. So when you're making a decision, you can always be like, okay, I understand why we made this decision because of these specific points. So strengths, in our case, as Sohan said, strong subject matter expertise, like PlanLogic has been in the business for 10 years. There is reputed backing because obviously, as I said, been in the industry. And then the weaknesses, limited engineering team is, some might say it's a limited engineering team, but it's more of like a very specific scenario. And the other one is very important, lacking a common language between business and the technology team. And in our specific case, changing requirements. It's a very turbulent area because like every week there is like compliance updates and things like that going on. So we have to be very careful. And as for opportunities, there's existing client base. So it's a really great like test bed with like you can use KPIs, NPSs to kind of figure out whether you're going in a proper direction. So definitely you want to use that. And in general, the industry is also wanting change. The newcomers of this advisory business, they understand something needs to change. And as for threats, there is a bit of regulatory gray areas and data availability. They both go in hand because of there's a certain like kind of monopolistic thing going on, but also the regulations about how third-party companies should operate with those data. So that's also something we have to be really careful and try to leverage that as well. So yeah, what's next? Part 2, addressing constraints and laying the first like bricks of building this product. And so we know our team now, and what we need to do now is making like tangible products that people can get the look and feel for. Because in our case, where we have to guide PlanLogic, who's not a software company, and they might not make the correct decisions of putting the requirements. So it's always better to build the prototypes and get it out. And goals in mind is be fast and flexible out of the gate, right? So API first design. So it's better than you think. A lot of people say API first design. Yeah, okay. If you have a blog, yeah, you can do API first design and you'll be fine. Which I do disagree with, because there's a lot of good ecosystem tools around it to actually do very strong things. And as for advantages, like it's good developer experience first, because you're building strong contracts, and when you're working with outsourced teams, like in our case, it's always better to have those to kind of give it to all people, and they have an understanding of how the APIs and the product works pretty much, right? And the other things are like teams can work in parallel. So this is one of the common things you do with API first design, is that, like, let's say for your UI team and your backend team can develop at the same time, and hopefully those two fit together most of the time. And increase the speed delivery because of that ultimately. So in our case, when we actually retrospectively look at it, we've been fairly successful with API first design, and we've done it through like open API documents, formerly Swagger. So with that, we were able to build strong contracts. And then we used Stoplight Studios. They have an open source tool called Prism, which is able to really mock API, open API files, in the sense that you can put examples. These are not single endpoint that returns a JSON. This is like multiple scenarios that you can divert based on like parameters and such. So it's very powerful. And recently, Async API, we didn't get to play with it yet. But if you're building like a event-driven environment, Async API is one to do that API first design for event-driven stuff as well. So microservices. Yeah, I think in a developer conference, I don't need to say much why you use microservices, but just a primer, just in case if someone missed out. So normally you would do monolithic structures of software, but microservices is basically decompose little sections of your program that you can independently develop, right? And this has its advantages, like you can have faster delivery and easy maintenance because you have a specific team that is involved in tackling each kind of vertical of the microservice. And then you have a strong contract in between them using Open API, Async API. So everyone can be in sync, pretty much saying that I know what to expect from this specific service. And just to add on, if you're using Open API or Async API, you can also use automated tools to make sure that you're not breaking API compatibility. So it's like if you have automated repository of Open API files, you can actually say, actually, your new change is going to break compatibility for this specific module. So there's advantages like that as well. But it comes with its own drawbacks, complexities of developing a distributed system being one, idempotency, out of order delivery, multiple delivery, all of that, really good things. So you have to be very careful with those. But mainly our goal was, since we have little teams that are working in an isolated fashion, and we want to continuously deliver value as much as possible. So we chose to go with microservices. And the last drawback is deployment complexities. And actually, we kind of got away with that because we are using serverless microservices, which are like fully managed, and it's very easy to maintain. And for our bandwidth and what we have to contribute to the business, it's much more important to kind of get that across. So that's what we use. And if you recall the sort, like I talked about these fast moving changes, right? There's a lot of rapid changes. Some are weekly, some are even daily, where things are changing and business might come back to you saying, oh, actually this thing being calculated on the product is not accurate. And for things like this, what we did was we built interfaces for business to kind of directly interface with our system, in the sense they have very comfortable interfaces of getting in and changing the behavior of the solution itself. And when you're starting, it's always important, even though some might say there's a risk in it. Yes, you need to gate it and you have to be very careful. But to make sure that you have a working product that is up to date, you need to build interfaces such as that. And I have two examples here. One is really easy one that we use, Google Sheets API, to actually read off a lot of values for a specific business process. And then we have another kind of custom-made UI in React to one of our financial projections engines to capture those kind of details. So yeah, SMEs can directly contribute towards the behavior. So I think that's great, because teach a man to fish, amazing. And yeah, making it sustainable. So let's say you got the app, you got the traction, and you're getting feedback. You're getting really good feedback. And now we need to kind of make sure that we are doing this very carefully, because there's a lot of value being processed through the system, and you don't want to disrupt it, obviously. And in the beginning, it's fine to have it all over the place, not working suboptimally, because again, like premature optimization is obviously not good. So you can, once you're at the point, you'll know you have to make it sustainable to make sure that this continuous value delivery is taking place safely. And how can you do that? There's the basic things like have measures and gates to ensure the quality, right? So you can have like automated testing, things like that. And also to be able to proactively observe red flags or performance issues. That means even before something goes wrong, you'll know this is bound to go wrong, so we better fix this now. And afterwards have just like a palette of tools pretty much to innovate and deploy new features at ease. So you don't have to kind of go from ground up. You can bootstrap fairly quick and just deploy a new feature. And the last one is, again, with proactivity, have the tools, procedures, and the messaging infrastructure to make it transparent to all parties. That is, to business and to engineering, so they can kind of observe what's going on and make decisions based on that. So I've drawn a very simple diagram to kind of relay what this might look like. So in our case, on top, we have the messaging platform. We use Slack. And on the bottom, we have version control. In this case, we use GitHub, sorry. So you have your standards, continuous integration going from infrastructure as code, source repositories, and then continuous deployment pipelines kind of communicating back to the messaging platform of impending changes. And for that, we have DevOps templates as well. So if you want to introduce something new, it's very simple. You just apply that. And as for infrastructure as code as well. So everything is modularized. We use Terraform, and Terraform modules are pretty amazing. So when you want to implement a new microservice, you just import that module, and you'll get away with it, right? And it's great. So, and the other things are very basic automated testing that runs on our dev environment, UAT environment daily, and reports back to our messaging platform as well. And on the production and UAT environment, we have observability and monitoring tools. This is a kind of a thing where some people implement in DevOps, they like kind of forget to incorporate that or take some time to incorporate it, is having that kind of continuous cycle of getting the feedback. So we have the observability tools always running to make sure. It can be something simple as your API manager reporting that this call is getting slow, right? And it reports to simply your Slack or whatever communication tool saying this is slow. Can you take a look at it? And even in the case of the distributed tracer we are using, it will even say your database communication from here to here is slow. Be wary of that. So you can proactively make changes. And since you are doing continuous delivery, it's like really important that you have those tools so you can capture if something is going wrong pretty early on. Yep. And speaking in that same vein of having like kind of modular things that you can reuse, like the DevOps templates, IAC, you might figure out that since a lot of development happens in isolation, like there is a lot of overlap, and some people might have re-implemented the same thing. In our cases, it was like we have a lot of integrations going outside because PlanLogic already has a like kind of workflow solution that they are using. So we need to integrate with those. And then the other things are like basic ones, communication, email. So you can kind of build components that independently handle that, but everyone can access it and integrate onto it. And in our case, we have components that are very heavily geared for data and like user management stuff. So you can build like modules that are like completely giving value to your company's goals. In our case, it's analytics and identity user data management. So that also, I have a very basic slide to say what that kind of thing looks like. So in Redis, those modules that we reuse. And we have a couple of things that are very specific to data. I think Sohan talked about it very clearly, how we are very keen on data, and it brings a lot of value. So we have a data analytics engine, like an exploration platform, an analytics proxy. So the exploration platform is like Metabase, so the PlanLogic can in real time take a look at the data and see what's going on. And the analytics proxy we are using called 𝗏𝗃 is simply what we use, because what we found out was even the industry, like the clients of PlanLogic, they want data as well. They want to see these graphs. And so we use 𝗏𝗃 as an intermediary between our UI to present that and also do role-based access control. And it's kind of anonymization, things like that is done through that. And yep, data analytics engine, it's available for all. So even if you write something like a small comments thing, you can still pipe that into the analytics engine and it'll be visible throughout all the channels. So things like that. And the other small stuff are like mail service integration. So those are things that you can always reuse. And that was fast, but engineering takeaways. So to give it simply, we've talked about, we didn't get here overnight. So all of the things we talked about sorting, understanding our constraints and all, it does take time, but it's always good to have that loop of trying to introspect and make sure that you're kind of looking into how you're working. And one of the things in the sense of a startup, or like you're trying to get something up, it's hard to get it right the first time. It's really hard. So it's better to fail fast. That's one of the things that actually like API first development has kind of helped us, where only the look and feel of like the UI and the interaction actually found out there were problems, we were handicapped, or some of the things were unavailable. So good thing we did API first, so we can actually just change the specification. And that was an easy fix. And the other one is just don't reinvent the wheel. It's like picking battles. You never can find the correct solution that'll fit you, but it's always good to do a kind of sanity check and like kind of see what's available and build on top of them. So that's something really important. And then we have some stuff like empowering business. So by building tools, this was very specific to our use case, but actually I think Sohan as well, I personally believe that programming should be kind of liberated, that everyone should be able to do it. So it's always great to see the like kind of feedback when you build a tool to actually like build a new process to your business team, because now they are empowered to actually try out things, quickly change stuff, and get something done. And it's like teaching a man to fish. So you won't get bothered every time saying, can you change that constant? But now you can change the constant yourself. Then the other one is building end-to-end channels of visibility. This in case of data and communication, because as far as it's always great to have that visibility and to know when things are going wrong. There's a lot of like basic things, like you can do like an NPS score if you're like running some sort of web platform, or else even like a very data collection through like Inspectlet or Hotjar, and kind of figure out whether something is being used or not. It's always good to have a KPI when you do something, if it's there, and kind of having those channels of getting those data across is really powerful. So I'm not sure if I ran through that super fast, but yep, we are Gradient, and we are searching for more folks who wants to join us on our journey. Sohan, you there?
Yes. Yeah, man. Awesome job. Perfect. Hey, and listen, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to open up for questions, but we're watching the chat thread. More than happy to take specific things. And maybe just while we're waiting, in case anybody has anything, I can just add one more thing. Again, I know the folks here are very engineering and tech focused, and again, just something I have found useful over the years. If you're ever considering whether, if you're questioning how much value you can create by joining by joining a company, by injecting technology into an existing business, one thing that I've kind of found useful is to kind of try to keep, to look at progress as kind of removing constraints. That's what technology does, removes constraints for a business. And in our case, what my thought process was coming into this is, this is a, it's a very solid business, but this constraint of not having access to quality data, not being able to, organize it in a way that allows you to, apply automation, optimization, high performance computing. If we could somehow remove that constraint, like I said, that's the 10x, 100x I was referring to at the beginning. So hence, the title of the talk had the word digital transformation. This is really where I think 90% of the battle has been, digitizing that conception of the work. If we can digitize that, if we can get that in a structured way, I think a lot of those constraints not just get relaxed, they get removed. So anyway, I think hopefully that might be useful to you all as well in making your future decisions, whether to invest time or not invest time into cracking some of these problems.
Yeah, it's great. Like people who like join these conferences have the sensibility to actually figure out there's a better solution, and maybe they might say we have already tried that. And I believe for Sohan, like Plan Logic also said, we tried some tech things, it didn't work out. But if you have that sensibility, there's a better way, and you should always bet on that and get on it. Yeah.
And sorry, another random thing, it's I think being a smart independent thinker is it's kind of a baseline, I think, for a tech person nowadays. But you can really leverage yourself by understanding what's different, what's different about you, what's different about your situation. So again, I had that slide about what's different about this problem, subject matter experts, founders from inside and outside, different perspective. Like, I think those are the things that if you can acknowledge and leverage, you have a real chance of doing whatever you want to do at the end of the day. Good stuff. Yeah, organizers, I think we've done what we were asked to do. So thanks for having us.